Hello, Internet. It's Daniel with Driving and Dragons. Today, I'm here in the interest of being fair to XP to level 3. I definitely spent quite a bit of time ragging on him about Tomb of Horrors and the fact that he simply doesn't understand it. And then I made fun of him quite a bit regarding combat and realistic combat, since he clearly has absolutely no idea how actual fighting works with weapons or without. And now I'm going to sit through one of his skits and see if I've got some common ground with him here. This is a short video. He said when there's puzzles in D&D, and you don't have to be a game master with any level of experience to have run across this before. I made a whole video on your players are dumber than you think. And I think it's one of the most important things. Like if you're writing your own adventures and making your own dungeons, that is one of the most important things that you need to remember, is that your players are much less intelligent than you think they are. And that is not necessarily a knock on them as players. It also has to do with the fact that they have to deal with limited information. If you were really in a room that had a puzzle in it per se, it'd be easier for you to figure it out than in a D&D game, even with the best description, or any tabletop role-playing game, even with the best description. And the reason's because there's always going to be little things that you can figure out, little context clues, little environmental triggers and stuff that are going to tip you off as a real person in a room interacting with objects and stuff that just can't be adequately conveyed as a by the DM unless you want to sit there and listen to a description of a room for several hours, and then you're forgetting it as it's going along. You're remembering all those details when it's not as simple as glancing over and seeing them, and they're not right there in front of your face. They're an image you conjured in your mind. All that stuff adds up to make your characters, your players rather, far less intelligent than they actually are when it comes to figuring stuff out in game. But let's watch his little skit here and see what we've got to say about his players, quote unquote, because of course they're all him, and having a puzzle dungeon.
All right, I have a dungeon to make. I don't have any ideas as to what to put in it. I currently have a room with a behir. I'll throw some puzzles in the way of the loot. That'll keep them busy for a good amount of time. Hopefully the entire session.
All right. Any game master who says that they have not done this before is either very inexperienced or they're a liar. We've all done it before. Session is Sunday. You came home Friday night and it's late. You stayed at work late. You haven't finished your adventure. You know you've got stuff you got to do on Saturday, so you're not going to get a chance to actually sit down and write something out. You can't really figure out what you want to do. And you're like, damn it, I need to. They're walking into this room and I have not written a damn thing. I only have the vaguest idea of which way I want my adventure to go. You know what? It's time to put in some puzzles. It's time to put in some puzzles, some riddles. It's time to go grab some mind benders or something like that from a book and modify them slightly to put them in here, because I have got to fill up time, and I know that I can get 2 of my 5 hours of, if I get 2 hours out of my 5-hour session tied up by this puzzle, that means I only need to write 3 hours worth of D&D quickly. But we've all done it. It's like, shit, I don't have anything here. Games tomorrow. What do I do? Puzzle.
Okay, so I'll take this room, and I'll make another. Then I'll have a giant Rubik's Cube that kills someone in a murder mystery.
Pythagorean theorem in order
A door where you have to say please. And finally,
a room with 4 stone obelisks in the corners. On these obelisks are written poems that each allude to 4 different elements. If they read the elements, they open the door. It'll be the final door before the loot. It'll look so cool to have stone and etchings. This is going to be so awesome.
And that is generally the way it comes about too, is you go in there and you spend probably as much time as it would have taken you to just write up some combat encounters or some traps or something like that, figuring out how you want to do your puzzle. The part that he's kind of skipping out here is the part where you write your puzzle and then you think about it for a second. You're like, man, this is too damn easy. And so you go make it more complicated. And you're like, well, you know, that might be too much of a clue. So I'm going to polish out that clue and make it a little bit more vague. And by the end of it, you end up with this convoluted mess that it seems easy or slightly something you have to think about slightly to you for two reasons. A, you already know the answer. And B, because you are coming up with everything, you know the thought process that led you to using a certain phrase as the clue. You know the 4 previous versions that you wrote that you rejected for one reason or another to make them fit. So you understand the thought process. Your players, they don't, which is, like I said, I did a whole video on your players are dumber than they think, or dumber than you think. And this is what I mean. You're going in with you think it's a super, super simple puzzle, and you're going in with all this foreknowledge and the thought process and how it was put together, and they're not. And next thing you know, they're stumped for hours. And what's even better is you would think as a group, they'd be better at it. But most of the time, being a group makes them worse because one of them might get on the right track and then the other 2 pull them off of that track. Because people tend, for whatever reason, when they're working on a puzzle like this, they all want to try and go in different directions as opposed to trying to really rationalize each individual solution that's offered. And you can watch them go off on all kinds of rabbit trails.
Okay, so what's on the door again? Okay, for like the 3rd time, it's made of stone, has runic etchings, and has a metal handle. What do the runes say? You don't know. You can't read them. They're just runes. Is there anything else? Other than it's made of stone, has runic etchings, and a metal handle? No. I cast Detect Magic. The door is magical. What kind of magic? Evocation? Whoa! No.
And here comes the problem when you haven't thought a few things out, a few out-of-the-box solutions. Clearly, when he's putting the puzzle together, and we all do this, you put your puzzle together, you got your puzzle pieces, and all it needs to do is open the damn door. And the party decides to look at the door instead of the puzzle, and they get fixated on it. This goes back to what I was saying about the level of description and not being physically in the room actually hindering their ability to solve the puzzles. And that's because in real life, you're surrounded by the stuff. It's always there. It's constantly in your mind. But when you're playing theater of the mind and it's in your mind's eye, your imagination is focused on this door, and you're starting to forget these obelisks that he's got in here even exist. And now we get to the point where he didn't think about the door. They cast Detect Magic. Okay, cool. It's magical. It's keyed to these obelisks. So it's obviously magical. But then when he asks, well, what type of magic it is, he's having to ad-lib off the seat of his pants. And unfortunately, that means you are now giving bad clues to your player. Why? Not because you're intentionally trying to mislead them or anything, but they're thinking, oh, evocation magic, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. Now they're focused, they're off on a tangent. And I guess me as a DM, the way I would handle this is when they cast the Detect Magic, they'd say, what kind of magic is it? And I'd look at, I want to say it's a couple of rounds in the player's handbook. I'd say, well, it takes you a few rounds of concentration to get that information. Let's move on to Bob over here and see what he needs to do. That way you can keep that thought process moving instead of people all, what the situation he's got here, where they're starting to freak out because he said evocation magic and now they think they've got an exploding door. But on the other side, we all know that frustration where it's like, it's the door, dumbasses. There's 15 other things in this room that are all the puzzle, and you're focused on the thing it opens.
Nobody touch that door! Actually, it's illusion. I punched the door! The door doesn't open. What? I stare at the door really hard with investigation. It's just a door. That can't be true. The past 5 puzzles had illusions. Guys, there are other ways to go. We've been doing puzzles for like 3 hours. Once again, the room has 4 obelisks in the corners that seem to have writing on them. All right.
I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here. I want to say it's insight, if I'm not mistaken. There's a mechanic in Call of Cthulhu that works well for this, where essentially what you can do is you can have an idea roll, and it's really good for this kind of situation where it's like, hey, give me an idea roll, and if they roll well on their idea roll, you can tell them something like, hey, remember there's 4 obelisks that have poems on them in this room. That's sometimes you have to kind of, you don't want to lead them by the nose, but sometimes you have to at least grab their head and point them in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't know what this means. I say please at the door. That doesn't do anything. Well, can I roll like an intelligence or a wisdom check to see if my character could glean something from the writings on the obelisk? Okay, roll! That's a 32. Okay. You think that something written on the obelisks might be helpful in finding how to open the... Oh! Stonewater Lava Life! That was so easy! God, you just gave it away! Easiest dungeon I ever played! Let's go into the next room and never think about this ever again!
Yep, that's true to life right there. In the event that you end up having to let them roll for some kind of clue or some kind of hint, you're always playing the line between, am I going to cheat them by having their intelligence roll come up and not give them enough for it? Or am I going to give them some clue that just solves the entire thing? This is difficult because you, as the game master, you know the answer. So you're dealing with perfect information, whereas they are not. But yeah, you absolutely have that. It's like, shit. You know, the wizard is rolling intelligence. The dude's got an 18 intelligence, and that dice, I swear to God, that D20 has been loaded all night. He's going to roll a natural 20. It's going to be ridiculous. He's going to have this massive check. And how am I going to give him enough information to justify his high roll or to satisfy his high roll without screwing this whole thing up? And especially if it's like we were talking about earlier, where you're begging to try and chew up some time, and now your puzzle you were relying on for 2 to 3 hours of gameplay just got knocked out in 15 minutes with one roll. It's like, shit.
Jacob, you, Yeah, sure, roll intelligence! 17. You easiest dungeon that the door can open.
Oh, yeah. There's a group of looks that are super, super common when you do the puzzle games and that sort of thing, because you err on the side of not enough information, and they're all like, seriously, dude, that didn't even help me at all.
Okay, we don't even need to do this. Yeah, we already killed the Bahir. This was just a really tough puzzle. So you want to give your players a really challenging puzzle, huh? Well, why don't you just look up some easy kindergartner riddles? That'll keep them busy for hours. Oh, so true.
Yeah, I guess that's where it kind of comes down to it. The silver lining is, if you've got a YouTube channel, you can then turn around and make a quick short about how stupid your damn players are. Oh, you need your players tied up for several hours? Put a kindergarten riddle over here and watch them fumble around with it for an hour. It definitely feels that way sometimes. In this case, this is not informational at all. He does not give you any hints or tips or anything. But as far as his skits go, this was one of the less annoying ones. And definitely something that touches on some things we've all dealt with in the past. So that is one of those situations where I'm actually in line and feeling the pain of old Jacob at XP to level 3 this time. I feel that pain. I felt that pain many, many times before. We have all felt that pain before. because we've always had something that we swear to God is the simplest thing in the world. And sometimes it is really simple, but it's kind of like the whole splitting the party thing. When there are situations where the obvious, easy solution is to split the party, but what does the party do? All your players are like, no, we can't split the party. We got to find some convoluted, crazy way to do this without splitting the party. Splitting the party is always bad. Your players will always see something that is too easy and then look at you as the dungeon master and be like, no, there's no way it's that easy. We're going to make this convoluted and crazy in some stupid way because it can't be that easy. Players, sometimes it's just that easy. Occam's razor, the simplest solution is the most likely a lot of the time. So don't get too worked up about it. But yep, there we go. Old XP to level 3. Having a good time talking about putting puzzles in and reliving the horror that is your players constantly botching it up and hoping you don't botch it up, and, you know, trying to salvage the fact that you decided to wait till the last second to draw your adventure up. So anyway, like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time. And let me know in the comment section below, when was the last time you had one of those wonderful situations where you threw what you thought would be a pretty easily navigated situation, be it a puzzle, be it a trap room, whatever the case may be, that just really screwed stuff up for your players. But I'd like to hear some stories like that. And I will see you guys next time.